See, I'm pissed off because a lot of people out there are acting like they don't understand what is actually happening in the city of Chicago in regards to the ICE raids. Let me tell you something. Black people, again, are collateral damage in this. And all the black people that are getting mad at ICE and Donald Trump, hold on, you got to get mad at the politicians right here locally, because it was the politicians right here in your city that decided to dump the migrant issue on the black community like they do every single time. When they came across the border and checked asylum, they were able to come over into our city and get incentives like medical care, 6 months free rent, free transportation, free child care. We fed them each and every day. And those people that they were giving assistance to, they didn't go up to the north side and to the white community. All of the people out there protesting that are white, they didn't open up their doors for them, and they didn't want none of the shelters on their neighborhood. Guess where they opened up the shelters? In the black community. Those same school buildings that they shut down in 2013 that were educating black kids, they took those school buildings and they made them migrant shelters. And then they gave over $700 million to a company out in Florida to manage those shelters. They took the buildings that you've been asking for to be developed and build new housing, and they made them into migrant homes, giving them 6 months of free rent. They dumped the problem on black community like they do every single time. When it was George Floyd riots, they closed downtown and pushed people to loot into the neighborhoods because they knew that people didn't care. Where was all the people right now? They weren't in our neighborhoods helping us open up back up our businesses. They were not in our neighborhoods helping us clean up. They weren't in our neighborhoods when we were fighting for Laquan McDonald, who was shot 16 times by Jason Van Dyke. I didn't see them at the protest. But now, right now, they want to make black people a part of the fight. When they made us collateral damage in the first place, we are always losing. That's why ICE is raiding buildings where black people are, is because they put them there. They pay for their rent. They pay for their food. They pay for their child care. They pay for everything, but they didn't put them where they live. They put them where black people live because they don't want to invest into the community. So that's the easiest place to dump a problem. So yes, we can say ICE is being aggressive. Yes, we know that our armed forces are always aggressive more to us. But what we can say is that our politicians did it to us. They should have never allowed them to come over here in droves like they did. And then when they did come over here, they should have never put them and dumped them in black communities, acting like we didn't want economic development, like we didn't deserve better schools and deserve community centers and deserve grocery stores. We deserve better. And our politicians need to act like it. Stop putting everything before us.
All lies will be exposed.
Hey, welcome everybody to Hardlands Media. We'll be waiting for our third guest to join us very soon. But guess who I have joining me here as well? That's right. Part of this awesome panel is none other than good friend of the show, somebody who had a chance to work with many at times, plus also be on his programming as well. You know him as Nick Thompson, fellow Chicagoan, good friend. And I actually had a chance to meet him face-to-face at the Jimmy Dore show here in Zanies in August. Nick, how you holding up, buddy? Welcome to, I guess, Warzone Chicago, I guess.
Yeah, ground zero for America's second civil war, I like to say. But how are you doing, Kit?
You know what? Surviving the storms one day at a time, pushing forward, and all I can say is no matter what happens, the only way I'm stopping is if I'm 6 feet under, and I ain't going anywhere anytime soon, okay? No matter what, there's always a beginning, middle, and end, and how I feel about this right now is that I'm glad that we can have this discussion and conversation about overall the fate of Chicago and where we're going, because even just before I got done with some morning show, I get a private message from you saying, did you just see what happened to somebody at WGN? So we got a lot to break down here, but I've mentioned you numerous times here on the podcast, especially when we've joked about the glorified parades that have hit Chicago, especially one that's going to be happening on October 18th, another No Kings March. But I would like to get your thoughts and comments so far of, perhaps of another perspective, because, I live on the south side, you live on the north side of Chicago, but it's abundantly clear that no matter what part of the city you're going into, everyone has their own 2 cents to think about really ICE, Mayor Brandon Johnson, J.B. Pritzker, Trump, everything that's happening here. So I guess on day one, how did you feel? And did you think things would escalate to the level of an Anchorman kind of conversation?
Well, when was day one? Because I feel like this start and stopped about 15 times in the last few months. And now what was interesting to me today is I picked up a physical newspaper for the first time, and I don't even know how long, coming out of a Walgreens, because I saw J.B. Pritzker on the front telling Trump to come and get him. So now we've got these two old men talking like they're going to go settle the score in a UFC octagon or something, which quite frankly, I would love to see. But the drama and the pandering and the back and forth of our politicians is such political theater when you look at some of the things that are happening in this city right now. And I think what's interesting too, and I think you got a little bit of that with Jamal's video, is I don't see it in my neighborhood. I live in Wicker Park. It's been gentrified for 10 years now. I don't see it in my neighborhood, but you can see the videos of it happening in all of these other neighborhoods and the videos of it happening downtown and in the city itself. And so to me, what's so alarming to me more than anything is how rogue the entire operation seems to be. And there doesn't seem to really be any structure or any plan or any actual laws that are being enforced at this point. And then you've got our politicians, Brandon Johnson standing up to Trump, Pritzker standing up to Trump, but not actually really doing anything to solve the problem.
So here's a couple aspects that I brought up on the Jimmy Dore show, and I brought this up on a couple other podcasts too, and I've seen your posts on social media, and that is overall the lack of communication and leadership that we are seeing from the city. And when we look at City Hall, again, the beating heart of Chicago politics and Chicago corruption, there is a lack of real initiative by Mayor Brandon Johnson to de-escalate. Now, to be clear here, look, I know I've been criticized on this show for maybe being too harsh on Brandon Johnson. And to be clear, ICE and its operations, especially the infamous video, the 4-minute video that took place at 63rd and Costner, where Jimmy even said on his own show that that's where he used to live. You see 2 or 3 ICE agents fail to detain a man who is, called out like, hey, are you legal? Are you illegal? And the gentleman who was being detained was saying like, I'm a legal citizen. And what do you see? You see not protesters, but you see a whole community, people driving their cars, people, waiting,
honking their horns.
Yeah, exactly. And are seeing this person being detained, and an absolute failure of controlling a situation that, should it have escalated even further, would random civilians been shot or tear gassed? I mean, we don't know. We've seen the videos.
I mean, they're tear gassing, quote, protesters right outside of schools. I mean, that's the thing. There's no actual laws being enforced or followed or structure or process to these procedures. These ICE agents are power hungry, in my opinion, and they're out there not following any laws, using these random, blanket warrants that are actually probably not even legal to have and use in this case. And there's all of these things that and then all I hear, all these things that they're doing, and then all I hear out of Pritzker and honestly, I don't even think Brandon Johnson's posturing. I think he's in over his head. But you hear Pritzker, and it just sounds like he's taking the Gavin Newsom playbook of, I'm going to stand up for Trump for political positioning and look like a tough guy, but not actually do anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the thing. Speaking of Pritzker, brace yourself, my friend, because we have this infamous video right now that was seen on Jimmy Kimmel's show, but also being made fun of. Here you have our governor, J.B. Pritzker, using the mocking tone, saying that it's a war zone. Governor, if you don't act now, Chicago will be a war zone if you don't take the initiative.
J.B. Pritzker reporting from war-torn Chicago. As you can see, there's utter mayhem and chaos on the ground. So it's a challenge to survive here in the city of Chicago, but there's no hellscape that I'd rather be in.
We now know the name of a 16-year-old boy killed on Chicago's South Side. Police say Kamari Brockman was found shot to death in a parking lot near 60th and Prairie on Wednesday. It's not known what led to the shooting, and so far nobody has been arrested.
So look, not going to sugarcoat it. Yes, the numbers. Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead. I mean to cut you.
Oh, I was just going to say, Chicago, at least as long as I've been old enough to remember it, has always been a tale of two cities, right? You've got downtown, which was cleaned up a long time ago, made pretty, great place to be, as long as it's a fine place to be. But then you've got all of these other neighborhoods, which over the years have been gentrified to the point where you're just condensing more and more communities into smaller spaces. You've got gang warfare happens as well, and then you've got more and more poverty and less space for these people through the efforts of quote, cleaning up Chicago over the years. And you literally have that. It's like I was saying earlier, like in my neighborhood, I'm not seeing any ICE agents. I'm not seeing anyone being detained, but I know that just a few neighborhoods over, that is the norm every day. You could walk outside and see it. So what he's doing right there is more posturing. He's not wrong. Like you're okay in a lot of the city to walk around. It's not a war zone, exactly. But again, there's the other side of the city that is practically a war zone.
Exactly. And for those who are tuning in, I want to just point out how correct Nick is in regards to saying that this is a tale of two cities. And the thing is, perhaps maybe if we meet all of you, our viewing audience members, perhaps we'll do one big pizza party and we'll say, hey, a tale of two cities, that's a tale of, well, many districts in a hyper segregated city, because That's the issue. Because when Nick is talking about communities being gentrified and people being replaced, removed, not incentivized to live in these neighborhoods anymore because property value is going up. There are war zones. There are areas in which Chicago, it is not safe to be at certain parts of the day. And I hate saying that. I love my city. And while Mayor Brandon Johnson is saying with absolute confidence and arrogance that the city is safe to live in, and that the crime rate is going down, look, it's not the first time a politician or any kind of elected leader would say that, or maybe fake around the numbers just a little bit. But there is violence in the streets. But overall, the actions of ICE and Trump and his administration, yeah, you could round up bad guys on the street corners and go after all the criminal organizations as much as you want. But as I've said before on this show and on Jimmy Dore's show, and I'll say it before you, Nick, as well, unless you go to City Hall, the criminality in Chicago is never going to end. I want to see that Blues Brothers reenactment. Arrest these politicians in City Hall. Arrest these bastards who have been for decades upon decades, even long before I was born and you were born, have been screwing and bleeding the people of Chicago dry for years. And
it's called the...
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's called the Windy City, not because we get a nice breeze off the lake, which we do, and sometimes it's windy, but it's because the wind the politicians would always blow. That's the history of the name, the Windy City, because we've had corrupt politicians for the entire time we've had the city of Chicago.
Exactly. It's in our blood, and actually seeing a politician do their job or even care about the city is a foreign concept. And let's go ahead and really look at the aspect of really how much further things will escalate, especially when it comes down to free speech. You have done you have a podcast. I'm sorry about that. You have a podcast. You're on social media. You have collaborated with a lot of great content creators. You've done a lot of great interviews. But I think there's something that both you and me are very concerned about, especially something that keeps us up at night is, what happens if the whole thing gets blown up and gets censored, or, oh no, you get a knock at the door and it's the political police and we get rounded up. I mean, censorship and suppression is now a very real thing. And as Chicago is seeing the further escalation of federal forces in the city, I really do worry about the future of the press. And I think you know where I'm going with this, because you threw this in my inbox just right after the show. Go ahead, Nick. Why don't you kind of give people a little heads up before I pull up this video about what exactly went down?
Yeah, so I saw this video on social media and I sent it over to Kit, a journalist for WGN. Her name was Debbie Brockman. Mm-hmm. She was thrown down to the ground and arrested. A journalist from WGN, not a journalist like Kit, who's, a YouTuber that, they would have less of a problem roughing up, but someone from WGN thrown on the ground and arrested while telling them, I work for WGN.
Well done. Yeah.
So when you've got a journalist on the ground, literally on the ground for being doing on the ground reporting, that's a big problem, because we all already watched what happened to Julian Assange. We already all talk about what happened with Charlie Kirk and anyone else who's doing any kind of reporting, speaking their mind, whether you agree or disagree. You have to have space for the speech you disagree with. And when we have journalists that are being punished for reporting the news, which is literally just what's happening in front of you, that's a real problem, because you can't come back from that. And we may already be too far gone with some of the things we've seen that have happened with people who have reported the news that wasn't very favorable to the government.
Exactly. And so when I say the censorship is all too real, the online suppression, and those that, are in favor of it or using these tools, remember, it won't be too long until it's used on you. And for those that embrace this or think that this is okay, I stand against it. I am not for journalists or reporters or anyone being roughed up in this way. So, folks, this is actually from WGN. This is local Chicago news. I'm going to play this video in its entirety. If there's anything you want to add in here, Nick, just let me know and I will pause the video. But let's go and play it.
Agents detain a WGN employee this morning.
And WGN's Courtney Spinelli has been digging into the case, speaking with people there when it happened. She joins us now from Lincoln Square. So what is the latest here, Courtney?
Well, Micah and Ray, this arrest today involves a WGN employee who works in the creative services department, which is separate from the news department. And we do want to point out that it is WGN policy that we do not show faces or names of people unless they are charged with a crime, which as of tonight, this woman is not.
We are at Lincoln and Foster.
I heard yelling and screaming and honking. I ran downstairs to see what was going on.
I am recording it. What is your name?
I had just tackled her and brought her into the street. And that's when I asked her, what's your name?
What is your name?
Commotion along this busy stretch of Foster Avenue around 8:30 Friday morning, drawing residents out of their homes. Several people using their cell phones to capture the arrest. But what led up to all of this is the question we're working to get to the bottom of. One witness says he heard people screaming for ICE to get out, and then he saw this.
The two ICE uniform, army looking, coming out from those two buildings and then grab people and they just snap them and throw them in the cars.
The man who asked us not to share his name says federal agents appeared to go after men working on a nearby property. He then says an older gentleman was detained.
We didn't even saw that coming. It was really so quick and fast. We were just screaming, leave him alone, leave him alone.
Video shared with WGN shows a minivan racing down Foster Avenue toward Lincoln Avenue. An object can be seen flying in the air and a woman is heard screaming. It was right after witnesses say the WGN employee, a U.S. citizen, was detained.
It looked like Border Patrol agents in a minivan had slammed some lady to the ground. And so I ran up to her and asked her for her name. She said she was a WGN employee.
WGN spoke with a handful of witnesses who say they ran out to find the woman pinned on the ground by agents. This is what the Department of Homeland Security alleges, that Border Patrol agents were carrying out immigration enforcement operations when several people used their vehicles to block them in. The WGN employee was not one of those people. They say...
Hold on. Did you guys hear that? The WGN employee was not one of those people, yet they swarmed her vehicle. Easy, soft target? I mean, come on. Let's grow up here for a second. I served 4 years in the Marine Corps. You know, my unit, we were anti-terrorism battalion. I was part of Alpha Company. And we did site security in the green zone. And when we were in such a high-profile area, because the green zone was where all the ambassadors and people of high echelon importance was at. The key is doing security, but ensuring you de-escalate a situation and also make sure that, you're able to ascertain who is a threat and who is not a threat. Who's trained these people at ICE? I mean,
there's immigration operations. What did they say? Immigration. Why are you attacking random people and throwing them in vans? And let me ask another question. Why are they wearing masks?
Mm-hmm.
Why can they not be identified? Where are their badges? Do they have badges? I can't see.
There obviously the defense for that is that or at least what's been stated so far, the narrative is that it's to prevent them from being doxxed or their families from being harassed. But the thing is
they're illegally detaining American citizens. No accountability. That's what I was saying earlier. There's no accountability. There's no plan. There's no structure. These guys just have some sort of, or think they have some sort of mandate to go manhandle people. Mm-hmm. And honestly, even if you're an illegal immigrant, even if you're a criminal, you shouldn't be manhandled more than you need to be detained.
Exactly. And the thing is here, I'm already looking at this. You already have three people, three ICE agents surrounding one woman who is clearly not a physical threat to any one of them. She doesn't have a weapon. Look, you can ascertain who will hurt you and who will not hurt you. And it's something that still is trained within my very soul and in my mind, especially when looking at a situation that's okay. If something gets violent and out of hand, how do you de-escalate or leave a situation? But you're having incidents like this. Now, this is an American citizen. She's not an illegal immigrant. She was not part of any protest group or anti-ICE group that was trying to block areas. She was doing her job as a reporter. And until footage shows me otherwise, I think WGN has some choice words for the Trump administration. Let me go ahead and rewind this again so we can all see this.
Asked her for her name. She said she was a WGN employee.
WGN spoke with a handful of witnesses who say they ran out to find the woman pinned on the ground by agents. This is what the Department of Homeland Security alleges, that Border Patrol agents were carrying out immigration enforcement operations when several people used their vehicles to block them in. The WGN employee was not one of those people. They say the WGN employee, a U.S. citizen, threw objects at Border Patrol's car, and she was placed under arrest for assault on a federal law enforcement officer. Now, we gave the Department of Homeland Security the opportunity to provide any video that they may have of the alleged crime, but they simply referred us back to their statement. Now, as of this afternoon, the WGN employee was released from custody without charges. And of course, we are working to learn more about the circumstances surrounding what happened here today. For now, we will send it back to you live from Lincoln Square. I'm Courtney Spinelli, WGN News.
So in other words, hey, journalists and reporters, they'll detain you too. At that ICE facility at Broadville, Illinois, I had a friend who was about to face off or potentially deal with, jury duty because of, I guess, maybe protesters being arrested. And I'm just wondering now, as things intense, I noticed one of my fellow viewers, who's a fellow Marine as well, Gray Walker Joint Third Party, says lawsuits will soon be a-flying. And that's what we're seeing, because there's no way after that there won't be a lawsuit towards ICE. Deferring to the next statement, didn't any one of them have a body camera on? Where's the CCTV footage?
I laughed.
So go ahead, Nick. Go
There's
ahead.
not going to be any body camera footage. They're not even showing their faces. And I think we all know too, when you wear a mask and when you don't have to show your face, just like on the internet, it's a lot easier to say something on the internet than it is in real life. When you're wearing a mask, it's like a cloak of invisibility. And so people who already have this rage and this anger inside of them, which is probably the type of people that ICE attracts, they're going to be even more unhinged when they have that mask on and they don't have any accountability and they don't have their name and there's no way for people to hold them accountable. And that's the situation we're in right now, where they can literally arrest citizens that don't even have anything they've done wrong. They can just arrest them and there's no consequences for that. And by the way, the National Guard, they got that blocked. Trump sending in the National Guard was blocked for a couple weeks. I think it was 2 weeks with a temporary restraining order. And then you look at these people though, and they're in vans, unmarked vans, unmarked clothing. Anybody can dress up like this, grab a van, and just start going around and conducting themselves in the same way. So like, where are we at?
Exactly. Exactly. Well, and here's the thing. I think there's a perfectly good chance to even bring in our next guest who's part of our panel. And I really want to thank him for joining us, because Nick, I think you see him here as well. I want to give him a proper introduction. Give me a thumbs up when you're ready. He is an entrepreneur, activist, twice mayoral candidate. He's one of the few people that I would add in the same category as Nick, as one of the dauntless few who actually cares about Chicago. And I played his video at the beginning of this segment, even gave him a shout out on the Jimmy Dore show. Give it up for longtime guests and one of the dauntless few, Jamal Green. Hey, how are you, sir? Welcome. Thank you for joining us for our program.
How are you guys? I hear y'all getting into all of the grits here and all of what's going on.
Chicago grits. Nice to see you, Jamal.
Good to see you as well, Nick.
So let's be clear here, because I've mentioned, I name dropped you on the Jimmy Dore show. I mentioned you a few times, and obviously you've been a guest on my program as well. Yeah. But Chicago is in a dangerous spot, and it's quite clear. We talked about ICE escalating force towards journalists, and obviously there's videos of them acting very foolish towards, especially trying to detain or arrest people.
I see.
But I think it's fair now also to bring the criticism to local politics. And let's bring up our mayor, no longer mayor 6.6%, but at least according to some allegations, he's mayor 5% now, Mayor Brandon Johnson, who I believe will probably be more or less a one-term mayor, unless I'm proven
For sure.
wrong.
For sure.
He will be a one-term mayor in my opinion, in my humble opinion. So it's one thing for me to say about this. You ran for office. You have been critical of Mayor Brandon Johnson and his administration from the beginning. So for my viewing audience, I said to you, even in our private chat, just like I said to Nick, no holds bars. Don't censor yourself. Be unapologetic. Let the people know exactly about Chicago and its leadership under Mayor Brandon Johnson and how we got here.
Yeah. I think it's important for people to understand that Chicago is the most corrupt city in the country.
Fair.
I mean, we have to understand that our politics are heavily driven by money and greed. And in Brandon's case, Chicago Teachers Union wanted to be able to get a mayor and that did their bidding. And they were able to do that with the biggest CTU teachers contract in history under Brandon Johnson, as well as bankrupt the schools at the same time to do so. I think that, it is just unfortunate that in our city we cannot get a mayor who is actually from Chicago that is really interested in improving the quality of life of all Chicagoans and not playing into all of the national agendas, because they have to try to get us not focused on what's actually going on locally. So we can turn around as mayor of Chicago and we can push for all of the, the national movements and agendas and take sides. But meanwhile, right here in the city of Chicago, people are suffering. Right here in the city, in these neighborhoods, we got 44,000 vacant lots that the land bank in the city owns, is not being developed on and haven't been developed on in many years. We have food deserts. We have the most lead pipes in the country still in all the urban communities that have not been changed. When you look at every area of the quality of life, schools, development, housing, grocery stores, I mean, go down, health, you will see that the people, majority of the people in the city, violence, of course, can't leave that out. That majority of the people are experiencing a lower quality of life than what they're paying for when we have the highest taxes in the country. So when it comes to Brandon Johnson and planning to this new agenda, giving the migrants $1 billion over a couple-year period, to contractors, to friends, to another contract all the way in Florida, he gave $700 million, majority of the money to favored healthcare staffing that has no ties to the city. See, what's crazy is that even when you are slapping us in the face, taking our tax dollars, they took $95 million of the COVID fund to pay for migrants. When you are taking our dollars that should have been allocated to us, that the federal government allocated to us, and you're taking those dollars and you are putting it on the migrant crisis with no return on our investment, and it's just a return for you from kickbacks and your friends and folks who gonna fund campaigns. We gotta understand that this is not about migrants. You think they give a damn about humanity? You think they give a damn about these folks coming across needing help? They don't. They saw it as a scheme to make money, because the governors who didn't want them bust them here, and Brandon Johnson not one time ever said that he wouldn't take them. He said, "We're gonna figure it out. Just keep sending them. We're gonna figure it out."
I think it's also important for us to bring up the fact of that when I asked this question to a lot of, soon to be candidates, soon to be politicians in City Hall, a lot of activists and organizers, when I did bring up this question of, hey, can we take care of these migrants? Because again, the reason why there's a migrant crisis, the bigger picture, is because of, national foreign policy. Okay. But we're here talking about Chicago. These people were brought here on the false pretense that there was opportunities when there was none.
Yes.
There never was a plan.
Yes.
I think we need to address it now.
We
There
have
was
to.
never a plan for the migrants, and I feel sorry for them, mostly the kids, because nobody should be suffering like this. No, I
Yes.
think we're not saying this out of malice. We're not saying this out of hatred. But if there was never a plan, well, then no wonder City Hall was erupted with anger, and no wonder what happened on November 5th. Let's just address this for what it is.
They
People
fooled
think
those people. They
exactly.
fooled those people, kid. They made all of those folks who came to Chicago. Because guess what? Don't let's not forget that when they got on those buses in them other cities, they asked them where they wanted to go. And a lot of them, 50,000 of them said, I want to go to Chicago. Why? Is because they got family and friends who came here and told them that the incentives were better here. Come to Chicago. These people were fooled to believe that what we were doing for them is sustainable. And we didn't, talk to them and say, look, we're only going to do this for a short period of time. What they did was they started spending money. And then a year and a half later, Brandon is saying, all right, well, now we finna give y'all a time limit on when y'all in the shelters. Now we're about to finally put some structure in place on how much money we're spending on y'all. After you spent $1 billion already. Not once was there a plan, kid. And it is disgusting that without a plan, we just found monies and monies and monies. And each year, last year we had a $1.2 billion deficit in which he raised, taxes on different things and streaming tax, and he raised fees on tickets and fines for tickets and fines, and he raised permit costs and things of that sort. So he went to all of the things that people pay for, and he just raised them up so that he can fill his $1 billion gap. And now we're again at $1.15 billion deficit. What you think you're gonna do again? He can't go out there and tell the people that he want to raise property tax. He tried that last year, and the city council threw him out and said, we're not raising our property tax. So now he got to figure out how to do it again. And what he gonna do? He's gonna go to all the things that we're spending money on, and he is going to raise it again.
Add some more speeding cams.
Yes, he did that. He added 50 speeding cams last year. It is utterly disgusting that the people's quality of life have to continue decreasing while they're playing politics.
Exactly. I think also.
And by the way,
go ahead, Nick.
Oh, I was just going to say, what are these people going to do when their funds get cut? Because guess what? They're still going to be hungry. They're still going to need a place to live. They're still going to have. So what are they going to do?
They're gonna, hey, people don't want to talk about the Republican talking points, but let's be for real. It's not a talking point; it's the truth. They're gonna commit crime.
Yeah, because they're
the same pastor was getting millions of dollars. Brandon's friend got Brandon allocated him millions of dollars to run a shelter. Just yesterday, a call come in over the scanner that a migrant had a knife and he was trying to kill somebody at a shelter. So the reality is, let's not act like once this money starts drying up and we cannot afford to take care of these people, that folks will not go into survival mode, and now we are increasing the problem that we already have.
I want to address something here, because something here that the audience is bringing up here. First, two things. Number one, the quality of the shelters. I know that there was at one point, I believe in 2023 or in 2024.
Yes. I did a press conference.
Press conference. You did a press conference about the falling, about the lack of safety at these shelters, because again, people are living there. There was the infamous Superfund
people were
site.
dying in the shelters.
Go
Diseases
ahead.
were running all the way through the shelters. I sat in front of that shelter when I did a press conference, Kit and Nick. There was an ambulance that came to that shelter every 5 minutes. We're sitting there looking. I had it live on video. We're sitting looking like, holy like what they're saying is totally like they were sick as hell in that micro shelter. And folks were passing around every disease in the book. And guess what they were doing? They were still transporting those kids to schools, and then they were going to pass it in the schools. So we almost created our own epidemic here, because they said that folks were begging to go to the hospital. They wouldn't even get any care and anybody to even take them to the hospital. They were getting no support in these shelters. This was a full money grab. They didn't care nothing about these migrants. They treated, if you go and ask these migrants how they were treated, they'll tell you that they was treated like garbage too. Let's be serious about the fact that our local politicians played in everyone's faces, including them. And we got to let folks know this ain't about Trump. I'm so sick of Democrats playing the Trump card. This ain't about Trump. This is about the fact that our local politicians created a situation that is now unfolding right before our eyes, in which let's be clear here. Joe Biden loosened the asylum laws to allow for folks to come across the border. We had a huge influx. Now, the governors of those states where they were coming said, man, we're not finna keep taking care of them with our tax dollars, right? Obviously, they knew that Biden wasn't finna get them a lot of federal money. So they saw it as a way to, oh, since the Democrats don't think we have an immigration problem, well, how about we bus them to sanctuary cities? Brilliant idea. I couldn't have thought it better myself. I would have did the same thing. Y'all want them? Hey, where y'all want to go? Chicago? Come on, get on this bus. And I'd have been simple, because guess what? People are not understanding. What people don't understand is that not 10% of the money that we've spent are from the federal government. We're spending our own dollars, state dollars, city dollars. People got people fooled out there. Somehow they think the federal government is giving all of us billions of dollars. They have not. This crisis has cost hundreds of billions of dollars. The federal government have not paid it.
So what I want to ask you then is this, because another thing that's been brought up, and I think you've brought this up, especially for home ownership. Nick, you've mentioned this as well, but there are the schools on the south and west side neighborhoods of Chicago that have either been closed down or have been, I guess, remade, refurbished, perhaps that's a better word, to be temporary shelters. But overall, when the schools are shut down and when neighborhoods are already struggling to stay alive, what have you been hearing in regards from community leaders about the status of these schools, or either that those that are shut down, there's no resources going to them? What are you, is there anyone from City Hall? Is there any alderman that actually, I don't know, surprise, controversial statement here that actually gives a damn, that is trying to show leadership?
They play politics with those buildings as well. And what happened, there's a lot of those buildings still sitting vacant. I went and looked at a property in Roseland the other day. You got a whole building filling up the whole block. It's huge, boarded up, been sitting there vacant since 2013. There are a lot of school buildings still laying vacant in the community, lowering the property value, making it to where people don't want to even come in and live on these blocks because they got a huge abandoned school right across the street. So the only schools that they really repurposed were the ones that were in an area where they can create some condos or some housing, or they can do something to make them a bunch of money. They can steal some affordable tax credits and stuff. You get what I'm saying? That's a whole different show. So the point is most of them school buildings on South and West Sides have been vacant. So now, after all these years, what you have was community members going to the community meetings saying, why we can't turn this into a school? We got the money, let us do it. The aldermen had to sign off. They didn't even have a real bidding process. And the alderman has to sign off for you to even get to school. Then another mayor would get in, like Lori, and say, no, the schools have to come through me. So what happened was the CPS would have to transfer the title to the city, and then the city would do a redevelopment agreement with whomever they choose politically to give the school buildings to. And that's in the middle of what the hell I was going through trying to get a school building. So I mean, it's utterly disgusting how they treat these neighborhoods. And all of a sudden, the migrant issue, we have an idea.
Nick, go ahead.
And yeah, guess what I read earlier today, getting ready for this show. Our pal Kristi Noem said that Trump's administration is buying properties in Chicago for more ICE operations. So
I did
now
see that.
this very problem is going to get bigger.
It is.
It's like both sides. We're going to use them to house migrants, and then we're going to use them to detain migrants when we
Detain migrants.
snatch
Now
them
we
up.
doing detention. But the thing is they're
Yep.
they're focusing. I'm looking at where they're looking at. They're focusing actually on the suburbs. You know, like Broadview. They're looking at another warehouse in Broadview. We gotta they're using these suburbs and they calling it Chicago for the national news, but it ain't Chicago. I don't see um I don't see them buying a building in the city confines and having a shelter. I don't believe what happened. They're gonna go out in the suburbs on the outskirts because it's kind of easier to deal with rather than they come into the community. But I could be wrong. But I know I saw they were looking at another shelter in Broadview. I think their direction is gonna stay out of the city, which would be a smart thing to do.
Exactly, but we're already seeing too right now, and that is the continued escalation. Now, I have witnessed, at least in my neck of the woods on the south side of Chicago, the actions of helicopters, intense helicopters. Reminds me of my time in Iraq almost.
Yeah.
Helicopters flying over my home and a few other areas that I frequent on the south side of Chicago. And yes, you do see the occasional unmarked vehicle drive on by, and you're wondering, will something go down? But I fear that this is slowly leading to the stepping stone of the National Guard being deployed. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, and I'll play this video. If there's a point where you want me to pause, I'll be more than happy to do so. But a federal judge, or at least a judge at this point, a federal judge, has decided right now to at least enact the order to temporarily block the National Guard from being deployed, at least in Chicago for the time being. Now, to be clear to my entire audience here that's watching, it wasn't too long ago where Brandon Johnson was touting a victory when there was none in the first place, because here we are, and chances are National Guard will be deployed. A piece of paper from the court, unless it's enforceable, is just that, a piece of paper.
We are live this evening outside of the Broadview ICE facility where some of those troops have already been stationed.
And we're also at the courthouse where a judge just made the ruling on the state's legal challenge objecting to the use of military forces being sent here to Illinois. Let's get started with NBC5 Charlie Wojciechowski. He's at the Dirksen Federal Courthouse right now. And Charlie, tell us what the judge decided and what this means.
Well, Judge April Perry just a few moments ago handed down what she called an oral ruling on this case. She says she will grant a temporary restraining order that will block ICE from many of the enforcement functions it planned to carry out here in this area. She referenced the fact that she can't really trust the information coming from the Department of Homeland Security. In recent days, 4 cases that have been brought against protesters accused of wrongdoing have been dismissed here at this courthouse. She calls the information here unreliable. She also referenced Trump's belief that crime is out of control in Chicago, and she said she can't imagine how the job of the National Guard is to fight crime on the streets of Chicago. He said whatever the president's authority is to protect property and personnel, he may not do so with the National Guard. We expect to learn more about the limits and the parameters she's setting on the National Guard when she issues her full ruling tomorrow. But for right now, she is talking about the founders of this country and how they could never imagine that one state militia would be called on to go to another state for political.
So I know that your time is limited, Jamal, so I want to just get your thoughts on this here too, because there is the concern of the National Guard being deployed. And as someone who's been a community leader and has done a lot of outreach, especially here in Chicago, what are some of the concerns that you're hearing on the ground about? Obviously, the judge is right now making the order to halt it, but that halt can only be for so long, because in my opinion, it will be deployed.
Well, let me say this. The deployment have to be under certain guidelines. And essentially, everyone talked about the troops hitting the streets of Chicago. I don't see that happening to fight crime. I think their way in is exactly what the law will allow them to do, is create a scenario where they have to protect federal forces and federal buildings, right? And they may be trying to create that on purpose to get the National Guard in, right? So that they can show a presence on the streets. You know, I don't see the National Guard fully being deployed to the streets. You know, I can be very wrong because Donald Trump can be authoritarian and tell them forget all these judges, all the troops to the streets, and he'll be at the Supreme Court and the Supreme
Insurrection
Court
Act, right?
Insurrection Act and
Yep.
and how the Supreme Court and everybody else upholding any decision. So you know, that can very well happen. I think let me say this because before I leave, because I think this is important. Everyone needs to stop playing politics in our state. And the reality is they're playing politics because they don't want, if Donald Trump really start uncovering what's really going on behind the scenes, there'll be a lot of folks going to jail. And the reality is they need to figure out how to come to a common ground to calm the tensions between them and Donald Trump, because Donald Trump can utilize every agency in his control to make things harder, not just for them. If they make it harder for them, guess who it affects?
Real quick, I know that we might be losing your
What?
signal again here. Sorry, we might have lost your signal here, but I wanted to get your thoughts on here too.
Affects
Because
us.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Okay, there we go. I think
ahead.
that's what people need to understand, that it affects us when they don't work with the federal government. I don't care who it is. It needs to be a common ground. Truthfully, if I was the mayor of Chicago,
Cliffhanger.
I know it's cliffhanger. Because hold on, if you were mayor of Chicago, we'll wait for you to get a signal. Hold on. If that's the case, we will wait to get a signal, but that's a cliffhanger right there.
That was such a cliffhanger.
It was. There you go. I think we got it back now. If not, my friend.
Well, I think while we wait for him, I think he's spot on where there's, especially Pritzker, so busy playing politics and posturing because he thinks he can be president in 2028 that all he cares about is the podcasts that he's going on, getting on the newspaper covers, having these little social media videos that he's posting, trying to be funny. And he's just playing the game. He's not actually doing anything to protect the people of this city and the state.
Exactly. While we do wait for maybe Jamal Green will return. If not, I will ask him what was the question for that cliffhanger if he was mayor of Chicago, because the one question I did want to ask him, and it was unfair because I think even Nick, you would agree on this one. How are you feeling about the potential year for 2027 for our city elections and what lies in store? Because we're gonna have a clown show. It's going to be a war zone. I said this numerous times on the program. And I think if you're added 2 cents into this, because we are seeing the end of 2025. 2025 is almost going to be over. You know, in a couple of months, it's going to be New Year 2026, and then there's our city election. And as someone who has commented a lot on politics, I mean, your perspective is definitely needed, and I would like to get your thoughts on really where the events of this year, potentially next year, and then going into 2027. Where do you see the city going?
No idea. This is the thing with politics. It changes so quickly. It all changes and moves so quickly that I really couldn't tell you anymore. Like the last thing I predicted correctly, which I think I talked about when we did election night coverage, was 2 years. But back in 2022, I predicted Trump was going to win again. But like now, that guy's approval ratings up and down like a yo-yo, and it's because it's chaos. Like the whole country's in chaos. The city of Chicago is in extra chaos. And right now it's like, I honestly don't know. I think about it sometimes because I even think about the election with Paul Vallis and Brandon Johnson. Mm-hmm. And it was really like the election of how are we going to handle crime? That was really the only single issue people were voting on. How are we going to handle crime? Are we going to put a whole bunch more police officers out on the street and go with Paul Vallis? or are we going to try to systemically fix it through, the treatment not trauma program, which is why I endorsed and voted for Brandon Johnson. And I don't endorse candidates now that I have a following, because I think people should pick their own candidates that they support. But
smart, very smart.
Yeah, but people still hate me for it, so it doesn't matter. But to me, it's like I look at that election, and now I'm like, if that election was held today, would Paul Vallis dominate? It's possible, but then I think I was like, well, where would he stand on these on ICE being here? And I'm like, well, if he won in 2023, ICE probably wouldn't even be here. So then I'm like, so is someone like him or even him going to come back and be the retroactive on the Brandon Johnson short era? I have no idea, because I don't know what it's going to look like in this city tomorrow, let alone next year, let alone 2 years.
Exactly. But there's one thing that both you and I did witness, because you were, I'll never forget. Holy cow, you're still covering election night. I remember when you sent me that text message and then said, "Oh my God, you're gonna do a morning show, Kit? What's wrong with you?" I love doing this. I love talking politics. I love YouTube content creation. The only way I'm stopping is if I'm 6 feet under. That's how you stop me. You got to end me. And the thing is, what did we witness? We saw 2 districts in the city of Chicago flip
Republican.
Red.
Yep.
Flip Republican red. That's never happened in Chicago's history. And when I say that never happens, even Jimmy was surprised by that, because I remember him asking me, like, well, wait a minute, how did that happen? It's because there is now a growing wage. So it is fair to say, when you said, I don't know what's going to happen, I could say I don't know what's going to happen either. We could theorize. What I could theorize is that when we see how 2 districts flip red, there is a beginning stage in which perhaps maybe in regards for this mayoral election cycle, we could see maybe a Republican candidate run for office, a Libertarian candidate run for office, a Green Party candidate run for office, anybody now at this point. Because
and Paul Vallis might as well have been a Republican. He was a Democrat because he wouldn't have made it if he wasn't. But to your point on that, I think we might be in a position where there is a real outsider that could quickly come to power, but that's also kind of what Brandon Johnson was. He was real grassroots. I know that for sure. I was part of that. He was real grassroots, but the system ate him up right away. And so a real outsider, even someone like Jamal, if he were to run, a real outsider, I think could catch steam, because I really think that and it could be an outsider who's a Republican, could be an outsider who's a Democrat, it could be an outsider who's a Green or a Libertarian, or just someone that gets propped up through activism as a independent. It could be any of those things. But I think that where we're at is a point where there's real need for change, and more people are waking up to that. And so just like we get Donald Trump in 2016 because people wanted real change, just like we got him last year because people wanted real change and didn't like the direction, I think a real outsider, whether it would be someone like Jamal or someone who's maybe more red, or someone who's completely different, I think there's a real chance that could catch steam.
I want to point out here as well, because I had one of my viewers, shout out to Dr. Nick. There you go. Shout out to Dr. Nick, who made this correction to me. He says, "Kit, it's not a Democrat machine anymore. It's just the political machine.
It's the machine.
It's a machine, because no matter what color you put on it or what kind of nuts and bolts you put on it, it's Republican, Democrat, it's still a machine." And for those wondering, well, wait a minute, hold on. Paul Vallis might as well be a Republican, and Brandon Johnson was an outsider, but they were both running in the same primary. What is that? I'm going to let y'all in a little secret. All right. Something about Chicago politics that a lot of people don't know. Technically, when you're running in the primary, you're kind of sort of not a Democrat, but when you get in, you put the D on your neck, you put your D on your shoulder. Hey, I know it's a vulgar term using the word D, but you put the Democrat D wherever you want it, but you're going to be a Democrat. That's just how it is. That's a fascinating thing. So in theory, you are in the Democrat primary, wink, 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 but you're kind of sort of not until you win. Then you are a Democrat, and then you get the infamous paperwork and phone calls that are telling you to follow the orders. as you control
It's
the most
like-
powerful seat in the city.
One of my favorite Jimmy Dore jokes is he says everyone who runs as president with all these progressive ideas, and then they become president, and the CIA sits them down and like shows them an angle of the Kennedy assassination that nobody's ever seen before, and they get right real quick.
Oh yeah, you
It's
do.
my favorite joke, I think.
Yeah. Hey, who says it's a joke? Who
Yeah,
says
I
it's a
know.
joke?
I know.
And then all of a sudden, hey, you know what? Just adding some humor in here, because as soon as you find out it's not a joke, that said presidential candidate that was running on so many things, or U.S. senator, is finally comes to the realization that
I don't know anything about politics. I don't know anything about politics. I don't know anything about politics.
you don't know anything about politics. There you go. Had added some of the soundboard here.
And
I
that's
love
that's
myself.
also how we ended up with Obamacare after
Mhm.
Obama got elected instead of Medicare for all.
Exactly. And now as we push forward, you know, I do want to point out, because people are saying, well, what's happening in the city? What's happening in the city? Is the city holding up? You know, over the weekend, not this weekend, but last weekend, you have the police that were tear gassed. And while things are getting cold here in the city, that's not going to stop people from turning out. And on October 18th, there will be a No Kings March protest. But before that happens, there's this situation, an incident that happened. And, you know, I talked about it in the program. Everyone did, but this happened.
Come on, man.
Tomorrow it's you!
Come on, man. Y'all, you know that was fucked up. Y'all know that was fucked up. Y'all know that was fucked up.
Garcia! Trail! Wake up! Wake up!
You're gonna
Wake up!
We're gonna go this way, and then we'll.
Wake up! Wake up! Wake up!
Y'all don't get. None of us get paid enough for this.
Hey, it's time to get up! Job Get up and now! arrest ICE!
Wake up!
They shot a Chicagoan
Wake
today!
up.
Arrest ICE!
Wake up! Wake up!
Come on, guys. You know. Come on.
So that was an incident. And then, of course, this is actually commentary from the Chicago police superintendent, who defended the use of force by ICE officers. That's definitely what you call no bueno.
Federal agents, ICE, HSI, are officers. They are agents of law enforcement. If you box them in with vehicles, it is reasonable for them to believe that they are being ambushed and that this could end in a deadly situation. And it's reasonable for them to use force based on those conditions. Do not box in any law enforcement officer. You are breaking the law when you do that. And you are putting yourself in danger. Following law enforcement agents around. The question is why? What do you plan on doing? It's also reasonable for them to believe that you're eventually going to do harm to them. If you ram any vehicle, especially that one that contains law enforcement agents, and that's any law enforcement, local, state, federal, county, and you do this intentionally, this is considered deadly force. Deadly force is anything that can cause great bodily harm or death. When you plow into a vehicle that contains law enforcement agents, you're using deadly force. And they can use deadly force in response to stop you. We need to be clear about these laws. We cannot become a society where we just decide to take everything in our own hands and start to commit crimes against law enforcement. It is a crime. You may not like what they're doing. I can understand that there's a lot of emotions out there, but that does not mean that you get to commit a crime, especially one that could lead to deadly force.
So, in other words, the whole thing is deadly force, deadly force. But a lot of these ICE agents are not in peak physical condition, can't control a situation. We saw a WGN reporter get arrested. We saw the infamous Benny Hill video in which ICE agents were chasing a man on a bicycle because he's saying F Trump and he didn't have a weapon, didn't do any
That was
harm to them.
hilarious.
And then we saw on 63rd and Cosner them completely lose the situation in 4 minutes and 16 seconds where a whole community told them to F off. And thankfully, whoever that person was being detained managed to escape, at least for now. But overall, Chicago police officers also got gas too.
Yeah.
Like, the bounds of reason here. Go ahead, Nick.
I'm not for violence. I don't think violence is ever the answer. And if someone's using violence against anyone, I don't support that. But I got a question for Larry, our superintendent friend. If your law enforcement is running around in masks, unbadged, unmarked vehicles, conducting violence, throwing women reporters on the ground, manhandling them, manhandling people who are citizens of this country who have shown absolutely no reason whatsoever to be harassed, who's violent? Who's instigating? The law enforcement. So protesters, activists, parade participants, don't be violent. Don't let someone else's violence start your violence. Not a good answer. But the real problem I have with what Larry, our superintendent friend, said is that if law enforcement should be respected, then law enforcement should also respect. And their job is to duty and protect the people of this country, not shake them down and arrest them or throw them in an unmarked vehicle or detain them for no crime.
Exactly. And,
with no warrant.
And again, there's a bit of a larger video of this here as well. But this is one guy on a bicycle, just who was telling people or telling these ICE agents, go F yourselves, F Donald Trump. He wasn't a threat. And when I see stuff
Which, by the way, is your First Amendment right.
Yeah.
You can speak to police officers like you can speak to anybody else.
Mm-hmm. And of course, you got this one guy looking at this one person who's filming. I'm wondering, are you going to detain this person for filming?
Get him. What's that? What's that?
Now, yes,
someone needs
funny.
to put clown music to that.
Oh, don't worry.
I
actually got the perfect clown music for it. Okay. Well, it's not Benny Hill. Here it is. Hold on. We'll mute it right here. Beep beep bop ba doo da bop ba da bop beep da boop beep bop ba da boop ba ba da ba da boo ba dee bop ba da ba ba da ba da boom ba da bum ba da bum ba da bum ba da bum. There you go. All right, he gets away with it. But what's frightening is,
what were they going to do if they got him?
Yeah, exactly. What were they going to do? Were they going to beat him? Were they going to just shake him up a little bit, rough him up, scare him? What were they? He had no weapon, no intent of harm. He just told them to F off. Look, I've been called all sorts of mean names on social media. I've been told to F off in real life. After a while, look, if somebody's not a threat to you, you just let them right off into the sunset. And now that's on the internet and becomes internet meme gold. I don't know. Go ahead, Nick. I didn't mean to cut you off. You were
Oh, no. I was just going to say the same thing. Like, you can say whatever you want. Like, you can't arrest people because they say something you don't like in America.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, I'm actually hearing from Do All Things With Love. Univision interviewed the bicycle guy. Do All Things With Love. Hey, send me that video clip if that is possible. But chances are we could probably get hit because of, obviously, YouTube stuff. There could be some copyright issues here and there. But I know it's getting late, everybody who's tuning in and watching this. But, I just want to add in just a couple of things here. First of all, there's a lot of uncertainty about Chicago, and there's a lot of fear and doom and gloom. As much as I'm hoping for things to de-escalate, I'm trying to be hopeful that there will be some kind of a real sit down, as Jamal Green has made a request. Like, yes, there must be a sit down between the mayor's office, Governor J.B. Pritzker, Trump, before things get out of hand, because people's emotions are at an all-time high. And of course, what you see on social media, we've been in this business for a very long time, Nick. I'm sure you've seen it as well, where you got people who are unhinged and permanently plugged into the online sphere to where it's what they're glued to, and they see things and then they choose to get involved in the wrong way, thus making a potential situation far worse.
That would be the perfect output called the No Kings March.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's leading up to it. So I guess it's fair for me to say, with everything that you've been seeing, at least in the people who you've been speaking to, perhaps doing outreach as well, is there talk of maybe de-escalation? Is there talk of like a worry and fear? I mean, what's overall your interaction with, as you have covered this, as you have spoken about this? What are some of the concerns you have, especially because you're more on the north side, I'm on the south side. Quite clear, we're hearing kind of the same thing, but different areas of the city. So I want to give the floor to you.
Well, a lot of the people that I've talked to were like I said, myself included. Like, I see it online, I don't see it in my neighborhood. So a lot of people, I think, have that same experience in my circle. And in a lot of people I talk to, I think everybody kind of thinks, I don't know anybody that doesn't think that Chicago's trending down for sure. Yeah. But what I think is the most interesting thing about this is I feel like it is exposing a lot of the problems that have already existed in Chicago, but it's kind of shining a light on them from the perspective of what ICE is doing. And if the National Guard comes, or God forbid the Army gets deployed, I think that we are going to have our eyes open, and people are starting to open their eyes to all of the problems that we are having that maybe we didn't see every day. And now that this is such a hot topic, and it's, Trump's like catnip. You put Trump's name on anything and triggers people from every single corner of the world. And so I just think that, what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing myself and people in my life, I think people are kind of starting to wake up to a lot of the violence in Chicago and the challenges that we have across the board with law enforcement, with what's going on in the neighborhoods that we've already talked about. And now what we're seeing with ICE, and you're seeing federal officials, law enforcement, as our friend Larry, the superintendent, said, I think people are realizing, oh, wow, they'll do it to us. They'll throw someone from WGN TV on the ground who's clearly a citizen, lives here, works here. They'll throw her on the ground and detain her. Maybe they'll do that to me or somebody I know and love. And I think that's as sad as that is. I think that wake up call is something that could lead to real change. And I can tell you, I would love to see this No Kings Parade turn into an actual protest. And you know what it could be? A protest to get ICE out of our city.
Exactly. And
that's the one thing that will get us to stop protesting. We want ICE out. And stick with it.
And the thing is,
go somewhere you don't have a permit to be, for crying out loud.
Like, don't just march to Trump Tower, which is gonna happen, like at Wacker Drive. I remember, because you were one of the few people that said, like, hey, be careful out there on Labor Day. I had a couple other people who reached out to me and said, hey, kid, be careful out there. I'm like, don't worry, because when I saw the protesters in front of Trump Tower, when I knew they would, there wasn't a peak in shape, physically fit.
You didn't see a threat, as
no,
you mentioned a few times.
No, and thank God. Seriously, thank you, Saint Abachan, for making sure nothing stupid happened on Labor Day. Okay, but if everyone's going to be really upset, one more time, go to City Hall. That's where the problem is at. Yes, I don't want ICE to be detaining people. I don't want ICE to be doing political police searches. I don't want the National Guard. I don't want 300, 3,000, or 30,000 National Guard patrolling and going around downtown Chicago, south side, north side, west side. I don't want to see it, okay? I want everyone to live a beautiful life. I know it's a bridge too far. I'm being too idealistic here. Yes, there's criminality and crime. I'm not going to argue with it. Nick will agree with me that there is violence and crime in Chicago, but the only way to really stop it is to upend and hit the restart button in City Hall. We got a lot of problems in this city on the streets, but it all can worm its way back to the main heart and cancer to it all, and that's City Hall, City Hall, City Hall. So I am hopeful that maybe things will calm down. But with reporters getting arrested, random citizens now, U.S. citizens being roughed up, the CPD being gassed, you got migrants being detained, you got protests happening in front of Broadville detention centers, and you have it continue to escalate. No leadership from City Hall, no leadership from the Trump administration. We're seeing everyone play this game, and it's a powder keg that will explode. And once it happens, yeah, things will get rough in Chicago. I want to be wrong about this. I don't want to see this happen, but it will happen if no one takes the initiative to do the controversial thing, and that's lead. And so what I would say to the activists and organizers and people, and dare I say it, maybe the leaders in City Hall, lead. Let's really calm down for a second and actually lead. And I already got Nick to laugh. Like, yeah, exactly. Because I already said the thing right there. Can they lead? And the answer is, I don't think so. It's a foreign concept. Go ahead, Nick.
I think that's kind of a good way to sum up what I was saying earlier about what I think is going to happen in the next election. I think there's going to have to be a leader that emerges. And if you look even at the federal level, look at the Democrat, what Democrat in this country is leading right now on anything? Any of them? Gavin Newsom on podcasting, JB Pritzker on Instagram Reels. That's about it.
Yeah.
Where's everybody? They're all on vacation.
By the way, again, this will be us, and I think this is a perfect note to end it on. Because it's getting a little late, and I think we all want to dream of a better future. But how can we dream of a better future if this is what lies in store? If we have no initiative, this is that reporter who was detained.
What's your name?
Debbie Brockman, I work for WGN. Let them know.
I got you. Yep. Debbie Browning?
Brockman,
WGN. You guys want to share your names too, or you're just going to cover your face? What's your name?
And she's terrified. She's terrified.
And ICE's statement was that they're going to trust in their statement. I want to see that CCTV footage. I want to see the body cam footage. I want to see different angles of where supposedly she was a threat. This woman was not a threat. She works for WGN. Unless something else happens, then okay, hey, I'll say, hey, opposing evidence here. But we have to remember that if we don't have at least calm heads around us, then yes, my words of war zone Chicago will be a thing. And we're not even close to the city election of 2027. Get ready, folks. And, myself and Nick and Jamal, we're all going to be doing the best we can to lead and report and talk about things that are happening in the city. So please share our content. I think that's a perfect way to end it here. Nick, where can people follow you online? Where can people follow your content? You have done a lot of great work. I've been on your podcast before. Tell the people where they can go.
Yes, you can find me mostly on Instagram, which is nthompson513. I have a podcast that comes out weekly, sometimes a little more often. It's called Eyes Wide Open with Nick Thompson. Get on YouTube or anywhere you listen to your podcasts. And I'm going to have you on again soon, Kit. It's been a little while since I've had you as a guest.
All good. Don't worry about it. You can count me on board, and I'll be more than happy to be on your show. That's, again, Eyes Wide Open podcast hosted by Nick Thompson. Follow him on Instagram. Show him some love, my friends, on social media. I want to give a huge shout out to also special guest Jamal Green. He left us on a cliffhanger.
Oh.
If I was mayor of Chicago, what would it be? And I've been trying to see if he did post any. Maybe he did. Hold on. Maybe he did. And I'm not seeing it here. Maybe he did. Nope. That was somebody else saying, "Hey, loving the." That was somebody else saying, "Hey, I love the show." So,
Okay.
what a good way to end the show with perhaps a song from Jesse Jett, and that is "Dust of Better Days." So, Nick, as always, it's been a real privilege to have you on. Thank you for being, again, same thing for Jamal Green. I call these two the Dauntless Few. Perhaps maybe I'm on that list too, of being one of the dauntless few. I don't know, but I know leaders when I see them, and I know good people when I see them. And Nick Thompson and Jamal Green are Chicagoans that have my respect. So without further ado, folks, we'll try and be safe out there. And Nick, as always, you're welcome to be on the show. We'll be live Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. There will probably be a Sunday brunch show, maybe. Maybe there will be Sunday brunch. I'll have to be quick about it because there's some stuff I have to take care of. But Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Central, YouTube, Kick, Rumble, X. Follow us on Patreon. And as always, be safe out there, folks. Nick, any other final words?
No, everyone take care, be safe, enjoy your weekend, and let's turn those no Kings marches into no ICE marches here in Chicago.
There you go. That's a great way to end it. Have a great evening, people, and I'll see you all on the flip side.
SWAT team took your neighbor today. Watch them as they walked him away. You told yourself extremists come in all different shapes. Met his eyes and lowered your gaze. Is it too late for us to ever change? When we are collecting the dust of better days, they're always watching us, but we're never safe. We're not meant to be safe, not meant to escape. We aren't meant to wake. Sheriff stopped your daughter today. Pepper sprayed her twice in the face. He must have had good reason if he'd treat her that way. At least that's what they taught you to say. But is it too late for us to ever change? Once we're collecting the dust of better days, they're always watching us, but we're never safe. We're not meant to feel safe, not meant to escape. We aren't meant to wake. Feds arrived and had you detained. Said you'd made some posts they want changed. Tased you till you felt like you'd forgotten your name, or life before they had you contained. Oh, life before they had you contained. SWAT team took your neighbor today.